This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope you're able to hear me well as see my screen.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay, that's great. So, welcome back. So, let's continue from where we have left in the last session. So, yesterday we kind of we started this project several days back. So, we understood the data by doing a very kind of consistent activity called exploratory data analysis. Then, based on the understanding that we developed around our data set and the problem that we are trying to solve, we came up with a few ideas based on what we have seen in the data for data cleaning. So we performed those steps, and then we also applied a little bit of domain knowledge and heuristics and other basic things that we need to perform on the data sets. We applied them in a step called feature engineering, and now we created a decent data set that is transformed very much from when it came to us as a raw data set. So we named it as ABT and saved it, analytical base table. So we want to use this table to train a set of algorithms to solve our problem. So before we go and do that model training process, so we are spending a little bit of time to understand or generally discuss and build a little bit of intuition into what are various types of regression algorithms, and that's where we are right now. In fact, in our toy project, we actually looked at most of the algorithms already, especially the simple linear regression algorithm we used, and we applied it same way with a polynomial for the polynomial terms point of view, and also we actually deployed in our toy project the decision tree based algorithms. Also we have used unconstrained decision tree, then we have constrained the decision tree and used it, and also we used an ensemble tree random forest we used during our toy problem, though we haven't used at that time boosted tree kind of ensemble. uh, so we built a little bit of intuition on those things. Now we are talking a little bit of theoretical aspects of what are the issues when we build models. And yesterday we talked about the issue of this model complexity, which actually is a very tricky issue as machine learning engineers build professional grade projects. And then we discussed already about model complexity from 2 points of view: underfitted models, overfitted models. But then yesterday what we told is that the more practical way of building models is that let the models be complex in the first place. So choose complex algorithms, make them more complex intentionally, deliberately. But when you deliberately make them more complex, means you are giving them a lot of flexibility to learn the data. When you give a lot of flexibility to learn the data, they learn some whatever noise also is there, random noise that is there. So it happens. So then it will be overfitting will be caused in those models. So we know that. So then attack the overfitting uh, by applying a set of tactics, and then you somehow make it much more smooth. So make it complex, make it overfit, but then apply some tactics to bring it down to a better degree of complexity where it solves our problem. So that is what yesterday we talked, and thus we told that actually the final boss of machine learning is not so much model complexity, but it is actually overfitting. That's what yesterday we talked. And then we talked about some tactics to fight against that big villain overfitting, and we talked about regularization, and we talked about means we just told, we haven't really looked into details. Then we talked about ensembling is another tactic, then train test splits is another tactic, then we talked about cross validation. All these things we will step by step learn as we build our models now. So today we will continue from where we have left, and we will go to our third step. Actually, this is our step 4, where we are taking a pause and reviewing suitable regression algorithms. Okay, in that yesterday we recapped actually our whatever we understood about model complexity, and then broadly we will talk today about regularization, and based on regularization, what are the regularized regression algorithms. Like yesterday I mentioned, we will deploy 5 algorithms to solve our problem. One is lasso, ridge, elastic net. These are all regularized regression algorithms. And then we will also deploy random forest and boosted trees. These are tree-based ensemble algorithms. Both we will use. So today we'll talk about second step and the third step. Then ensemble methods, bagging, boosting, what does it mean? And based on those bagging and boosting, if we are applying them on a decision tree kind of algorithms, what are the algorithms? So these are the things we decided to discuss as our fourth major step in our project. So we are today here regularization. Okay. So what I will do today is that there is again no coding thing. If you look at from our toy example, toy project point of view, we created a noisy sine data set, sine wave, and then we used linear model. Then we actually increased the model complexity by adding x square, x cube, x to the power of 10 kind of terms, and used the same algorithm, and plotted our polynomial regression models just to check how they work. And then we use decision trees, but at that time we have not used the 3 regularized regression algorithms. We haven't yet played with lasso, ridge, elastic net. Maybe what I will do is that I will go back to our noisy data set and pick it up and use these 3 algorithms and build a little bit of intuition how these algorithms work. Based on some theory that we learn, we will see also practically to build a little bit of intuition. However, I have not put that coding section in the presentation because it will take a lot of time. It's a simple activity, but you have to type a lot of things. So what I will do is that I will share it with you, that IPYNB file, so you can play with it whenever you have time. Okay, so are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's get going now. So regularization, let us understand regularization. Yesterday, I initiated a discussion on regularization. Maybe let me go back to what we yesterday discussed. Okay, yes. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yesterday we used this drawing to explain. So what I told you yesterday is that we have these 2 data points in black. Okay, using that we have trained a model which actually tries to predict, given weight, it will actually predict length of a mouse. Okay, so we had 2 observations using which we have trained, and we have used a linear regression algorithm. And when we use linear regression algorithm, the way it works is that it always uses a cost function. Cost function is, we have described here, C equal to sigma I equal to 1 to n yi, that is the actual y, minus yi hat, that is the predicted y by the model, and we are using square of that. So it is actually sum of squared errors is the cost function, and all of our linear regression algorithms try to minimize this cost function, or sometimes people call it as error function. Okay, when we have too few data points, okay, then because the nature in which it fits the data points, it will draw a line that will overlap these 2 points. Okay, meaning it, because it wanted to minimize the sum of squared errors, it will perfectly minimize. Means perfect minimizing is actually at a 0. So there is, if you test again only on training points, okay, this is my x value of, oh sorry, here this is the x value, for this is y, exactly whatever we told it will be right. Okay, here it is x, for that if you want to see the y, exactly there is no error at all. So whatever actual will be predicted because it is memorized those data. So that kind of model is a overfit model, and those are not useful. Okay, the red points there, they are actually the unseen data points, for which if we use this black line to predict, though this black line is perfect on the test training set, it will be very inaccurate for a new and unseen data. So what we call is that this perfectly fit line is not a very good generalization for future unseen data. So, but linear regression algorithms, especially when we have too many features and too few observations, okay, then they will actually learn the data and they will overfit the models. So simple linear regression models on such data sets are not useful at all because they are overfit. Okay, so how do we solve that problem? To solve that problem, one tactic we use is called regularization. So regularization is a mathematical technique. We want to really use our cost function, that is actually we are minimizing in a simple linear regression, that is actually sigma I equal to 1 to n yi minus yi hat square. So this is our, for simple linear regression, this is our cost function. So as yesterday I told, this line which is overlapping on my data points that I used to train is not, though it is good for training, it is not going to be good for futuristic unseen data. Okay, so how do I make this line better? So I have to make it little less accurate with respect to my training. So I can need not make it 0, increase it. And that means actually really you have to tilt this line. Right now this is having this kind of slope. I want to intentionally tilt this line with a lesser slope. So how do I mathematically achieve? So I have to add some penalty to my cost function and use that new function to minimize again. So that penalty functions, I add a penalty. Because of this penalty, let's say my beta 1, like say it's a simple thing. So y equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 x. Okay, beta 0 is my y-intercept. I don't bother. What I want to really alter is my beta 1. That is my slope of this line. Okay. So how do I, what I want to do, I want to tilt it a little bit. I want to reduce my slope so that to an extent where it is more generalizable model is built. Okay, intentionally I want to do that. So that is why I want to use a different cost function. Okay, I want to add some more factor to my sum of squared cost function. I want to add another term, I will call it as a penalty, and because of this penalty I want to tilt this line appropriately wherever it is actually more generalizable model is built. Are you with me? Any questions so far? Are you
No,
able to
Madhu.
hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So on this only I will elaborate now. So please, if you don't, again, we'll not go into a lot of maths, but we will try to explain whatever possible. Okay. So regularization is a tactic used to improve the performance of our models, especially simple linear regression models have a problem. They are too simple. Okay. When we do train with very fewer data points, or in other words, you have lot of features, means lot of columns in a data set, and very few rows are there, then automatically it is going to be a overfit thing. So at that time we have to use a tactic to improve the performance of our models, and that tactic is called, one tactic, such tactic is regularization. Okay, it is considered pretty advanced in academic machine learning courses. So a lot of people explain it with a lot of variety of visualizations and mathematics. And in fact, if you want to learn, there is a book, MIT Education has actually, I think the PDF is for free on the web. This is actually called Statistical Learning Techniques. Okay, and it is really a good book on all these mathematical background that is needed for all these algorithms is described in a very good kind of detail in that book. And again, I think there is a version 2 also came. They updated very recently that book with what all the advancements are happening in the AI/ML field, because that book was written some time back. Okay, so if you want to kind of understand the mathematical background of all these things, you can refer that book. Okay, but in our class right now, it is not our goal to go into depth and get lost. We want to do projects, practical. We want to be practical. So that is why we will not do. So it is considered pretty advanced in academic machine learning courses, but let's make it pretty easy to understand and implement. That is our goal. Okay, we are only bothered about using it, not actually going into details and learning. Maybe later at a particular time we can do that. Okay, what are the flaws of linear regression? In practice, simple linear regression models rarely perform well. So in fact, in any professional grade machine learning model building exercise, we will never ever use simple linear regression models. We use only these regularized regression models. Okay, though they are easy to interpret and understand, it is not recommended to use them for most serious machine learning problems. So what are the problems? Simple linear regression suffers from two major flaws. Already we discussed in our toy project. One is it is prone to overfit with many input features. If I have a table, okay, with 100 features, F1, 2, F2, like that I have F100, and my observations are only again 100. Okay, so this is a data has too many features. If we have 100 features, at least you have to have a million observations, then only that table is little bit balanced table. If you have 100 features and 100 observations, then a simple linear regression, what does it do? It will use a mathematical mapping function y hat equal to beta 0, this y intercept, or because it's a multi input, multi feature kind of thing, it is not really called simple linear regression. When you have multiple features, it is called multiple linear regression. Okay, some people use that way, multiple linear regression. Okay, means I have multiple features in my data set, not one. Okay, if I have 100, what will happen? Anyway, beta 0 is the constant, but other things, for every feature it will, like say feature, I'm calling it as F1, so let me call F1 only, beta 2, F2, beta 3, F3, plus go on and on, and finally my beta 100, F3. Okay, this will be the mathematical mapping function used by the linear regression algorithm. then it will understand the data, and then what it will do, it will stop somewhere where the optimum coefficients, these are all coefficients, beta 0, beta 1, beta 3, all these are coefficients. This is intercept, remaining all of them are coefficients. So it will calculate a value for beta 0 for the optimum where the minimum cost function is achieved. Then it will put in a list all beta 1, beta 2 values, coefficient values up to beta 100. What these betas basically, what they will do, they will try to remember when I have 100 features and 100 rows, what it does is that for every feature it calculates a particular slope that will try to remember the output. Okay, it is almost like your whatever your decision tree does, even your linear regression algorithm also will do by actually calculating 100 coefficients, and 100 coefficients, through that it will remember 100 actual y values. Okay, so that is the problem when you have too many features and few observations, then there is a problem of overfitting. Okay, are you there with me?
Yes, Madhu, one
Yes.
clarification. You mentioned beta 100 and F3, right? It should be F100 only, right?
F100, yeah, sorry.
Okay, okay.
F, it goes on F100, beta 100, yeah. Okay, correct. Okay, so that kind of mathematical mapping function does the same thing that is done by our decision tree. Anyway, in the practical, I will show you also that what happens there. Okay, and also another flaw with our linear regression is actually they cannot easily express non-linear relationships. Okay, now that is why we have used decision trees in our toy example. Okay, so let us take a look at how we can address the first flaw, that is it is prone to overfit with many input features. Okay, how to solve that, that is where actually we will solve. One type of over complexity occurs if the model has too many features relative to the number of observations. Okay, so too many features relative to the number of observations. So too many features, too few observations, then it's a problem. So take an extreme example with simple linear regression. Let's say you have 100 observations in your training data set, 100 rows. Okay, then let's say you have 100 features. So that is what I talked. What it does, if you fit a linear regression model with all of those 100 features, you can perfectly memorize the training set because it calculates a coefficient for every feature, and because there are only 100, so it will perfectly memorize them. Each coefficient would simply memorize one observation. Okay, this model would have perfect accuracy on the training data, but it will perform very poorly on unseen data. So these kind of models are not generalizations, not perfect generalizations. They are very perfect for their training set, but they are not perfect for the unseen data. That's what is the problem. Okay, it hasn't learned the true underlying patterns. It has only memorized the noise in the training data. So these are not good models, and that is a problem with simple linear regression, especially when applied to data sets with a lot of features and very few observations. Okay, so how can we reduce the number of features in our model? That is the goal now. So somehow I have to reduce the number of features. Now in our 100 into 100 thing, what is the equation? Y hat equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 x1, I am calling it here. Okay, don't get confused, x2 beta 3 x3, and I will go on and on and on and on. My final thing is my beta 100 x100. Okay, so there are too many features. That is what is causing my overfitting problem. So how do I actually solve this problem? How can we reduce the number of features is one thing. If I can reduce this x1 to x100 to maybe the most important 5 features which have more impact on the relationship between input features and the actual or predicted y, those features I should keep, remaining features I have to remove. So at the time of feature engineering, we applied our domain knowledge, we applied our some heuristics around thumb rules around that, and also we consulted with experts, we critically looked at, we built more important features, removed some unnecessary features. All those things we'll do, but that is all manual way of doing. So how do we automate that process? That is what we have to figure out. So how do I remove some features here? Okay, so if I try to make, let's say there is a beta 1 value, beta 2 value, beta 3 value, let's say I have only up to here 3 features and this one. So my algorithm will calculate beta 0 value. This is, I don't care, this is an intercept. Beta 1 is slope for feature 1, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. So let's say it stopped at some place where beta 0 is 0.2, beta 1 is, let's say, minus 0.5, then beta 2 is 1.5, beta 3 is 1.75. Okay, like that these betas have come. Now I want to remove some features to reduce overfitting. So what I have to do is that whatever is already small, okay, can I make it 0? Or can I make it very, very small so that its effect is not there on my model? That is when only I can actually reduce my slope. Let's say in a simple thing, this is the slope, first line. Okay, I want to make this line out of this. So what I have to do is that I want to figure out how to reduce the number of features totally, making this betas 0 actually. Okay, if beta is 0, the feature is out of the equation. Or beta is very, very, very small, also the features impact is very, very minimal on the model. So that is what we are telling. How can we reduce the number of features in our model or dampen their effect? Either make them 0. If you think that making 0 is not good because some impact will be there, say your mind is saying, then don't make it 0, but use a penalty in such a way that it never becomes 0, but it will be a very small value. That is what we are calling it as dampen. Okay, keep these two words. Either totally remove means make these coefficients 0, or make these coefficients very small. Don't make them 0. Let the feature be there in the equation, but let its impact be very, very minimal. So far, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So basically, we are talking to solve this problem. How can we reduce the number of features in our model? Reducing means making betas zeros. Okay. Dampen their effect means let the feature be there, but let it be very small. Okay. These are the things we have to figure out. That is how we can really regularize the problem that arises because of simple linear regression. And the answer is regularization. Okay. So let us talk.
Madhu,
Understand the
sorry to interrupt, Joseph here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
how
Joseph.
can we select the values, like which value has to be reduced? This beta 1, beta 2, beta 3.
Yeah, that is what we will not do. That is where actually the regularization coming. Now we will go into that now. Okay. Exactly, that questions have to come in your mind. It came. So how do we mathematically solve that problem? We'll see. Okay. We manually will not do. By choosing the algorithm, lasso or ridge or elastic net, we solve that problem because they are the regularized algorithms. So internally, what they are doing, let us see. Okay, Joseph?
Thank you.
Okay. So before we understand that regularization mathematically, what we are trying to do, what we want to achieve, so let us understand the cost function for regression algorithms. To understand regularization, we must first introduce the idea of cost function. For every machine learning algorithm, there will be a cost function, and every algorithm will try to minimize that cost function. Okay, so different algorithms will use different kind of cost functions. Some of the probability oriented statistical algorithms are there. They will use some probability equations that will be the cost functions, and they will be minimizing them. And some algorithms will use some partial differential equations, and around those cost functions are arrived. But for simple linear regression algorithm, actually the cost function, as I told you, cost functions measure the errors of your predictions for a given task. Okay, in other words, they quantify how inaccurate you are to make a generalized data. So they will arrive at an optimum line where the cost function is minimum. They help you compare performance across many models. If it is used as a root mean squared error, we can use that metric to compare performance also. Okay, because we are taking an average of that squared error, mean squared error. That is why we have used in our toy project to compare performance of various models we built. We use that metric called RMSE or MSE, mean squared error. Some people use root mean squared error. Okay, so that is a metric. They also commonly known as loss functions or error functions. So every algorithm will have cost function. So at the minimum, when we look at an algorithm, we have to understand what is its cost function. So machine learning algorithms, they attempt to minimize cost functions. For example, when an algorithm learns the best coefficients for a linear regression model, like whatever we have shown, beta 0, beta 1 to beta 100, it is actually finding the coefficients that minimize a cost function for your data set. Whatever data you gave, for that it will run this cost function, keep on checking through many iterations, and will stop at a place where it finally figured out the coefficients, which actually, with these coefficients I substitute in the equation, I have the most minimum squared error, sum of squared error. That is what how these cost functions are used by our algorithms. Okay, so the standard cost function for regression tasks is called sum of squared errors. Okay, so this is what I have already told you. So C is a cost function, but what is each of these things? Yi is the actual value of the target variable for a given observation. So in our table, whenever I'm giving some features and then actual value, because we are doing a supervised learning problem. So always there will be an actual Y using which we train the model. Okay, then for this training data set, what happens? Once the algorithm runs, it actually computes beta values. So if it is a simple X and Y, then beta 0 one value, beta 1 another value will come. Let's say beta 0 is 0.5 and beta 1 is 0.75. Okay, some such data has been arrived based on our data set. Model has learned these are the optimum betas where squared, sum of squared error is minimum. Then what I do, I put for every X value, okay, I put in my equation y hat equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 X. So let's say X is 1, then I put X is 1, beta 1 is 0.75, then beta 0 is 0.5. So 0.5 plus 0.75, whatever is that value, I am putting it as y hat. Actual value can be different. Okay, actual value, let's say it is 1.25, and this is, let's say, 1.5 based on calculation. So that is my y hat. This is my y, and I is y I'm putting because of many observations are there. Okay, so y hat is pronounced as y hat. This top some hat is there, is predicted value of the target variable for that same observation. So I'm substituting my betas and X and calculating the predicted value based on my algorithm's calculated model parameters or coefficients. Okay, then what I'm doing, I am using this term yi minus yi hat squared is the squared difference between predicted and actual values. I'm making, even if it is negative positive, I'm making it as squared so that I'm overcoming that problem of positives and negatives. And then what I'm doing, for all observations, I am summing that. If I have 1000 observations, so I am summing all 1000, whatever I calculated, yi minus yi hat squared, and I summed up everything. That is my sum of squared errors. And that is what I'm calling it as cost function. The more accurate your model is, the lower this cost will be. For the training, linear regression algorithms seek to minimize this function C by trying different values for the coefficients. That is what it does internally, the algorithm. Okay. So overfitting occurs when the cost for a model is low on the training data, means it is very low, minimized, or for the example we have taken, it is 0. So overfitting occurs when the cost, the C, is very low for training data but high for a new unseen data. If that kind of situation is there, so you trained first and then you took some more data points and checked, it is more now. So immediately you know that my model is a overfit model. Okay. So overfitting occurs when the cost for a model is low on the training data but high for new unseen data. So keep that in mind. So how does regularization come into play? That is what we are really discussing. So regularization is a technique used to fit overfitting by artificially penalizing model coefficients. So I want to reduce the slope. Okay, means earlier for my 2 data points, slope is high, but for my other points I want to use this, then I have to reduce my slope like this. Okay, that's why I have to artificially penalize my model coefficient. So beta, let's say here, if it is slope beta 1 is 0.8, here it is actually 0.4. Okay, I am reducing, so penalizing my some term in my cost function, so that I actually penalize and reduce my higher kind of slopes to lower slopes. Okay, it does so by adding a penalty factor to the cost function. So as I told you, the already existing cost function, we add something on top of that, we call it as penalty factor, and use this penalty factor and again minimize, then actually beta 1.8, because of that factor it should automatically mathematically come down to 0.4. Okay, that is the idea. So the penalty discourages large coefficients. This dampens coefficients based on how do you apply the penalty. Okay, it will either make, let's say I put a very large penalty, okay, then I can bring beta 1 from 0.8 to 0 also, okay, by adding one type of mathematics. Or I add any amount of large penalty, beta 1 will slowly close to 0, but it will never become 0. That is what we called whatever reduce the effect, means first one, making betas 0, is actually totally removing. Making betas very small but not zeros are actually dampening. Okay, keep that in mind. So 2 types of penalties are there, we can choose between them. So this dampens coefficients, okay, this penalty factor, or removes features entirely by setting their coefficients to 0. Okay, depending on the type of penalty we use. Okay, the strength of that penalty factor is tunable. Tunable means I can give it from outside by calling the algorithm, and the strength, there is a standard penalty and there is a strength. The strength can be adjusted by giving it from outside. Those are typically called hyperparameters of our algorithms. Furthermore, there are 2 types of penalties. One is called L1. Okay, L1 penalizes the absolute size of model coefficients. L2 penalizes the squared size of model coefficients. Don't worry, we'll talk about it now. Okay, so what it really does, so basically to regularize a simple linear regression model, why we have to regularize? Because whenever we build simple linear regression models on data sets which have a lot of features and fewer observations, they will be overfit. So to reduce that problem, to come out of that problem, we have to apply a tactic called regularization. To understand that regularization, we have to understand the cost function, and unregularized cost function with small number of data points, it will typically, the slopes will be higher, the betas coefficients will be large. So we have to dampen or make them zero by adding penalty factors. So we have to tilt it with lower slopes. That is what really we are doing. Okay, so there is L1. Actually, if you use L1 kind of factor to your cost function and penalize, then it will make betas to zero. Whereas if you use L2s, they will not make any beta zero, but they will make it very, 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 very small. So they will dampen the effect of a feature, but they will not remove the feature out of the equation. Whereas the L1 will remove the features from equation, because the problem we are solving by reducing the features, because number of features are causing the problem. So that is why we are doing some tricks in our algorithms so that these features are automatically either removed or they are shrinked. That kind of thing we are doing. Are you with me so far?
Yes, sir. Couple of questions, but
Yeah. Anyway, maybe reserve your questions. We will talk on the L1 and L2 and then we'll stop again. Okay. So L1 regularization penalizes the absolute size of model coefficients. The regularized cost function becomes this. Earlier, the regular simple linear regression, our cost function is up to here only. Okay, we are adding a new term. This is called L1 term. Let us take a simple two feature thing, beta 0 plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 2 x2. Okay, very few observations are there. It has minimized based on this cost function, but I want to regularize it. So I'm using this new term. What is this new term really? I am whatever with the basic cost function, my beta 1, let's say, is equal to 0.5. My beta 2 is, let's say, 1.25 with this cost function. Now, I want to reduce these betas because I have a feeling that it has overfit, it has memorized the data. I want to make it more generalizable by tilting. So I want to reduce these things. Okay. So what I do to reduce, I add a new term, that is lambda times sigma j equal to 1 to f absolute beta j. Okay, meaning I have 0.1, 0.5 plus 1.25. Okay, I am putting sigma of that, and this lambda I can decide any value from 0 to positive infinity. I can choose that. This is what we call the strength of the penalty, lambda. This is also called hyperparameter, because we can, while calling the algorithm, I can choose this. Okay, and then remaining calculation. Now once it minimizes this, this 0.5 can may become 0.05, 1.25 become 0.7. If I keep on increasing this lambda, okay, then whatever small will become actually 0, this will become 0.5. If I increase further the beta, both of them will become 0, 0. Then it will become a mean model, or a horizontal line will be done. Slope is 0. Okay, so by doing that, this, when you use absolute betas, you are adding slopes, you are adding, and lambda times. So this equation, let us read it again. C equal to sigma, this is our cost function. Okay, on top of that we are using this, this one is called L1 penalty. What is L1 penalty? All betas, I'm sum of all absolute beta values. Like say there is a beta 3 here, which is minus 0.8. That also will become positive and adds. So that is what absolute beta j means. Okay, so let us break it out. Beta j is the absolute size of a coefficient for a given feature j. Okay, like I have two features, beta 1 and beta 2. So these are the coefficients for given feature, j equal to 1 to f. I'm putting, if there are 100, j equal to 1 to 100 beta j, that is beta 1 plus beta 2 plus beta 100 for that. Okay, then I'm summing up. Okay, this term is actually is the sum of all absolute coefficient sizes for all features in the model. So I'm adding that. And lambda is the tunable strength of the penalty. Typically, you will try values between 0 and 10, but you can give any value from 0 to positive infinity. Okay, then this value already we know is the same sum of squared errors as the unregularized case. So when you use L1 regularization, so on your simple linear regression, you are adding this particular penalty term lambda times absolute beta's sum, okay, of all coefficients. Then what happens is that these betas will be recomputed with this cost function, and what is the effect of this? They will, based on your lambda value, they will come down. The slope will be tilted. It will be steep kind of slope will be tilted in a way, slope will be reduced. But if you keep on increasing this lambda, finally it reaches a slope where it becomes 0. When it becomes 0, your feature is gone out of the equation. Okay, so by playing around with this lambda and this particular type of regularized algorithm, then we can allow our algorithm to carefully, based on adjustments, we can let the algorithm decide to remove some features, making them zeros. Okay, so far you are with me. Then let us talk about L2 regularization. So L2 regularization penalizes the squared size of model coefficients. So here we have used only beta j absolute sum. What we will do in L2 is that we will square each of the betas and sum them. Okay, so the equation, the new loss function or cost function is like this. Okay, this is my term, sum of squared errors. This is my L2 factor. So this is my L2 penalty I'm adding. So L2 is little different than L1. Okay, this is lambda times j equal to 1 to f beta j square, squaring. Because of this, we are squaring it. The mathematical effect will come where even small values also, because we are using this square term polynomial, they will never become 0. They will become smaller and smaller and smaller, but never will go to 0. So we will not remove any particular feature because no beta will become ever 0. They will be small values, but they will be there. So by adding a very high lambda, we can make some features irrelevant but not remove. That is what we told dampening or shrink the whatever impact of that. Okay, so beta j square is the squared size of coefficient slopes, okay, of a given feature. Sigma j equal to 1 to f beta j square is the sum of all squared coefficient sizes of all features. Okay, so basically if I have 100 betas, it is beta 1 plus beta 1 square plus beta 2 square plus beta 3 square, beta 100 square, and sum of that. Okay, that is again lambda. Oh, it is, I think I didn't put, but lambda is your tunable factor, same thing. Okay, so far clear. Now you have some questions, please let me know.
Yes, sir. Sir, in this equation, lambda is a constant.
Not constant. Lambda is a external to factor. Again, it can be from 0 to positive infinity. You can tune it. These are called hyperparameters. A machine learning engineer will give these values. Okay.
Right, sir. It's a tunable constant. It's a tunable constant.
Yeah. Yes.
So, sir, but how it relates to betas? It's a constant. It's not related to that. So how will
It
it
is not
bring
related
down
to
the
that.
betas? So how will it bring down the betas? Is the question.
How it will bring down the betas is because it adds, in this example, let us take, so only with this cost function, it calculated as beta 1 plus beta 1 and beta 2 as 1.25 and beta 3 is 0.8. It was minimized only with this cost function, with this factor. Now we have added some constant to this, and again we are trying to minimize. So at that time, to minimize, it has to dampen this things, then only it will be get minimized. Already with this itself is this much. By adding another constant, actually it becomes smaller than previous. But actually, if we keep on adding this bigger number, because here it is absolute value, it will become 0. But here, if it is, because it is square terms, they will not become zeros. Again, there is a little bit of mathematical analysis you have to do with some data, you will understand. I'm not going into that. So right now we are telling this absolute betas will make big numbers, will make it 0, almost horizontal lines in a simple linear regression. And in beta j square, that is L2 kind of thing, they will never become 0, but very small. That also will make it less slope. So slopes are being dampened or removed. We are actually tilting them towards lower slopes by adding these constants in this way. In one way we are using beta j, and another way we are using beta j squares. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So now let us go to the third step, and then we will see practically this working of these algorithms. Okay. You can figure out maths. Lot of, as I told you, MIT Education has come up with a book on statistical learning tools and techniques. I think that is the title of the book. In that, they have given very good explanation with very good visualization. When you use beta j's, how it becomes 0, and beta j squares when you use, why it will not become 0 but very close to 0 because of the square terms. Okay, you can look at that if you are interested. But for now,
Okay, sir.
let's move on. Okay, so regularized regression. Now let us come to algorithms. Okay, so based on these principles of L1 and L2, there are 3 regularized regression algorithms. In the context of linear regression, regularization works by adding penalty terms to the cost function. The algorithms that employ this technique are known as regularized linear regression. When we come to classification, we will use another type of regression algorithm that is called logistic regression. That is, here it is linear regression, but next project when we do a classification problem, it will be logistic regression. So again, logistic regression also we have regularized logistic regression also is there, but we'll come to that later. Right now we are talking about only regression, linear regression. It is a regression problem, not classification problem. So we are only talking about regularized linear regression algorithms. Okay, there are 3 types of regularized linear regression algorithms. One is lasso algorithm, another is ridge algorithm, another is elastic net. These are very commonly used. Don't worry, these are simple names only. Keep remembering, we'll use all of them in our project. Okay, they correspond with the amount of L1 and L2 penalty included in the cost function. Okay, in fact, lasso uses only L1 penalty. So if you use lasso, you can make some slopes 0, meaning you can remove features. If you use ridge, it uses squared slopes. Then you will reduce the effect of some features, but you will never remove the features. Okay, elastic net is a kind of balance between lasso and ridge. So it has, it can act as both lasso and ridge. You can L1 L2 ratio you can choose how much of L1 effect, how much of L2 effect you want. That way it will work. So these are the three algorithms are there in scikit-learn algorithms. So typically, whenever we are solving a regression task and we want to deploy a set of linear regression algorithms, people don't use simple linear regression at all because they are not good for practical problems. So for practical problems, what is good is lasso, ridge, or ElasticNet. And in our project, we will be using all three because we have to apply everything and see. Okay. In case you are wondering, there is no really a definitive better type of penalty. Okay, there is nothing like that. It really depends on the data set and the problem. That's why it is recommended to try different algorithms that use a range of penalty mixes. Okay, so there is no definitive answer. Should I use lasso or ridge? Answer to that question, it depends on the data set and the problem you are solving, and there is no definitive answer. So because there is no definitive answer, you apply all of them, tune with many values of hyperparameters, compute metrics, compare the models, and then decide. That is what we call tuning process. So we'll know about the tuning process when we come to the fifth step. Okay, so let us talk about lasso regression quickly. I'm not going to lot of details. Okay, just description. Lasso or capital lasso stands for least absolute shrinkage and selection operator. Very tough to remember. Remember it as lasso only. Okay, lasso regression completely relies on the L1 penalty, meaning absolute sum of absolute sizes of your slopes, betas. Okay, practically this leads to coefficients that can be exactly zero. If you put lot of value, big value of your penalty factor, some betas will become zero, thus your features can be removed. That is why we are calling it as automatic feature selection. By tuning it with a high value, all the small values will become zero. That is the way to remove features automatically. Okay, remember the strength of the penalty should be tuned. The lambda is called strength of the penalty, that should be tuned. A stronger penalty leads to more coefficients pushed to zero. If you put a large value, all betas will be zero and it will become very underfit model anyway. Okay, so that is why it has to be tuned properly. Okay, so this is available from sklearn.linear_ model. So it comes under linear models only, and it is called lasso with caps L. Okay, then ridge regression. So ridge stands for really intense, dangerous grapefruit eating. Do you believe that? Ridge stands for that. I'm just kidding. It is just ridge. I don't know the abbreviation. Okay, I just made it up because we like abbreviations. So I made it up, but there is nothing like really intense, dangerous grapefruit eating. Okay, it is just ridge. I don't know why people call ridge. We also call ridge. So ridge regression completely relies on L2 penalty. It uses squared slopes, sum of squared slopes with a particular lambda value is added, and effect of that, this leads to smaller coefficients, but it doesn't force them to zero. That is why here feature shrinkage can be achieved. Some not so relevant features for the problem, already they don't have much impact, means the slope is not there because of that particular feature. They will be, their effect will be reduced, but they will not be removed out of the equation. So in any case, you want every feature to be there. I don't want to just like that remove one feature. Then ridge is a good thing because it doesn't remove. Remember, the strength of the penalty should be tuned. The lambda can be tuned. A stronger penalty leads to coefficients pushed closer to zero, not zero, but closer to zero. Okay, and this algorithm is available in again sklearn.linear_ model, import ridge. Then you will get this algorithm and you can play with it. And again, you have to tune this lambda. Whenever you call it, you have to call with a particular lambda, or actually in the algorithm, they don't call it as lambda, they call it as alpha. We'll come to that. Okay. Then using both L1, L2, a new algorithm is there, or a different algorithm is there called elastic net regression. So elastic net is a compromise between lasso and ridge. By putting a lot of things, I don't want to remove all features. Some I want to shrink, some I want to remove. By changing L1, L2 ratio, how much L1 effect, how much L2 effect, that kind of ratio we can adjust, and we can get a little bit of compromise. Elastic net combines both L1 and L2 penalties. The ratio of L1 and L2 penalties should be tuned. So new tuning factor, it has two factors to tune. One is lambda, you have to still do that, the strength of the penalty, because lambda will be there in both the terms. And L1, L2 ratio, there will be another parameter. How much L1, how much L2? 0.5 means 50-50. 0.9 means L1 0.9, 10% is my L2 effect, something like that. If you do that, that ratio should be tuned. So for elastic net, there are two hyperparameters, whereas lasso and ridge have only one hyperparameter, that is lambda, whereas elastic net has two, L1, L2 ratio and lambda. Okay. The strength of the penalty should also be tuned. We have to try with many combinations of data. Ridge and lasso regressions are special cases of elastic nets. If you set the ratio to completely in favor of one of the penalty types over the other. If I make 100% L1 and 0% L2, it becomes lasso. If I make 0% L1, 100% L2, it's a ridge. Then you may have a question why you have to have lasso and ridge. Okay. Anyway, this regression algorithm is there. Again, it's called elastic net ECAPS, NCAP, no space. That is how to import. By the way, you may be wondering why we bothered importing separate algorithms for ridge, lasso, if elastic net combines them. Okay, but they are in fact scikit-learn algorithms. They are separately implemented. Okay, so effects will not be same. Some changes will be there. It is because scikit-learn's implementation of elastic net can act funky if you set the penalty ratio to 0 or 1. If you make it one side, it may not be pure ridge or pure elastic net. It has some issues. That is why 3 algorithms have to be used based on your situation. Therefore, you should use the separate ridge and lasso classes for those special classes. Plus, for some problems, lasso or ridge are just as effective while being easier to tune. So you don't need to even go for elastic net. Okay. So with that, some description of our regularization, why it is needed, how it is a tactic, what are these penalties, and what is this tunable strength, and by changing the penalty type, what effect will happen on our mathematical equation, and how actually the slopes are tilted a little bit down. We have tried to understand in a very broad way. Any questions?
Madhu, Joseph here.
Yeah.
See, when we are selecting the lambda, like we have to apply 1 to 10, right? So do we have to apply each and every value and see which model is better?
Yeah, we have to do that, but it is not only 1 to 100. It is 0 to
1
infinity.
to 10. Oh.
No, I told 1 to 10, but theoretically, any positive value I can give more than 0. Or 0 is factor is removed, but otherwise positive number. Any number we can give. Okay, maybe we will go through it now. Though you are not doing the code.
How can we choose like which numbers we have to choose, like 0 to infinity? So for example, any specific range, like okay, for this particular type we have to apply, is there any suggestion or advice?
Yeah, there are some best practices for that type of problems we do. Definitely not large values, then anyway it will become underfit. So there are some best practices, like we will go through it and again come back to that. This code, let us go to it. Okay, maybe you will get a little bit of that. But again, when we do the project, because this is not our project, this is again a intuition building exercise only on our noisy data set toy project. But when we do, again those discussion will come. Okay, but specifically answer to your question right now, it is actually a very tricky issue. Okay, because as you asked, how do I know really? Because there are billions and billions of values we can try. But then again, based on the experience, best practices, there are some guidances of what kind of range of values we should try when data set is a particular type or the problem is a particular type. So that is what we have to really do that to answer your question. Okay, Joseph?
Okay.
Okay. So now what we will do is that in the next 15 minutes or so, I'm not asking you to code this because again, it will take a lot of time, but I'm going back to our toy problem. Okay. So there we created a noisy data set and applied our linear regression algorithms. Then we added polynomial features to the table and applied linear regression and found out how the polynomial terms affect the curviness and all that. We have seen that. And after that, we changed to decision trees and then ran decision tree algorithms. In all, we have built some 11 models and predicted values for all of that using our noisy data set, and then calculated mean absolute error and mean squared error. And finally, we told third order, whatever the third order polynomial regression was the best fit. That problem I am taking again just to show you how to apply these three algorithms: lasso, ridge, and elastic net, because at that time we did not use them. So anyway, this is my header file. All of us know, okay, we are importing all libraries that are useful: NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and Seaborn. Okay, then this data we created last time. Okay, we have created X using np dot linearly spaced values from starting from 0 till 2 pi, that is around 6 point something, linearly spaced 100 values we put and put it in an array, 100 values, random values, not random values but linearly spaced between. Then at the time we use this np dot random dot normal. Okay, we picked up some values that are, those are distributed in a normal way, bell curve, using a bell curve, and we decided that let them be very cohesive, and we told the mean of that whatever 100 data points should be 0, standard deviation should be 0.5. So we created another array called noise. Okay, so 100 values have been created in a very closely aligned numbers. Then we created y using the x plus noise, and we have now the input feature x in an array and actual y in another array of 100 values. Actual y is nothing but sin x plus noise. Okay, this is what we created because they are in NumPy arrays. Okay, and I want to really use it like a data set. What I did, I put these two arrays as two columns and created a PD data frame. Okay, and when I see my head, the first 5, my x looks like this, y is look like this. This is what we did already. I'm just doing that. So after that, I wanted to visualize that. So basically what I did a scatter plot of my x points and y points on my table, and also on that I am overlaying x axis x points. On the y axis I am putting sin x, so that I know what are my points with noise and all. What is my signal? This is my black thick line, it is a sin x. So my signal, I know what is the underlying relationship is actually underlying relationship is sin x. Okay, that's what I'm repeating these things only just for all of us to be on the same page. Then we deployed a simple linear regression algorithm, we called it. Okay, and we have instantiated it to a variable called lm. Then to fit this model, I separated my input feature and my actual y. Every time I do that, that is dropping y from the table, calling it as x, capital X I called here, then keep only y and call it as my actual y. So I'm supervised learning. So I'm fitting with both my input features and actual y. Then my model understood the data and it calculated a set of coefficients, and those coefficients with whatever x value are substituted on my lm.predict when I give my x values, 100 values. So 100 y hat values are calculated for the same training values. The testing data is not separate. Same training values I am calculating predict based on the model that has been created, and I am plotting both of them together, and my simple linear regression look like this. This black dotted line is my model based on my simple linear regression. Okay, so now that is what we have done. What we did during our toy project is that we added more features to this x and x. We made x square, x cube, x to the power of 4, x to the power of 5, like that we did, and increased, and we did a same linear regression algorithm, but then it started capturing curves. That's what we have seen. But now what we will do is that let us not add features with polynomial terms, because polynomial terms, by we know mathematics wise, they will observe the there is a relationship between x and x square. Still there is a relation between x and x cube, so that is why curvy relationship has been identified. But let us say I want to add to this table another 99 features, and they are nowhere related to x. Okay, they are again some random values. So that is what I am doing here. I am copying my df to another df called df garbage. I'm creating a new table now, and I will use some random things here. So I'm putting a seed so that all of us get the same result, and every time we get the same result. Then using this for loop, what I'm doing, I'm adding 99 more features. Okay, so I'm using the range function, starting at 1, ending at 99. N will get, so 99 times it loops through this. So I am adding a column called G1, G2 up to G99 to my table, current table, and I am filling the table, each column, okay, with the np dot random dot uniform 0 to 2 pi. I am not using here. I have used actually normal data distribution. Here I am using uniform data. Again, this is basically, there is no zero mean, there is no 0.5 standard deviation. I'm not putting that. I'm telling that between values from 0 to whatever 6 point something, pick some random values. But when I'm telling uniform means all the values have equal likelihood of being picked up. That is the randomness we are doing. So we are creating a table with 100 columns now. But these 100 columns are not polynomial terms of x. These are some garbage values. They have no relationship. They are random features. Hope you are with me on this. Okay. So these are unrelated to x and y. They are totally different random data, but I have added 99. So with x and G1 to G99, I have 100 columns for input. Okay. I have x, y. These are my original data set. Now added up to G99 with a uniform distributed randomly picked up data from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, so they don't have anything to do with my x and y relationship. Okay, hope you are with me so far. So once I have this data, I want to build my lasso ridge on this kind of. Now what is our data really data set? It has 100 rows and 100 columns. It is a very high number of features and equal number of rows only. So many features and too few observations, 100 into 100. Okay, so let us simply run our simple linear regression. So anyway, I am separating x and y, then I am calling anyway linear regression, and I am putting on that dot fit function. So I am training my linear regression model with this new data set. Okay, so it stopped. It would have computed lot of betas now, not one beta. So beta 0 plus 100 beta 1 to beta 100, it would have computed. We'll see that. And if I use that model with those betas and substitute all that betas into every x value and calculate my y hat and plot it, it is looking something like this. So what it is basically a linear regression algorithm. Okay, it can only understand slanted lines. But what happened here, the simple linear regression algorithm, when I have given a table with 100 features, actually each independent irrelevant features and not polynomial terms. I'm telling earlier we gave polynomial terms, then it would have reacted differently. But it is not polynomial terms. These are just random numbers. Okay. Then what happened here? It has actually memorized every row in the column. It has memorized the actual y's with respect to x. So it is a overfit model. Okay. So it is not useful. So that is where in these kind of situations we have to use regularized regression. So I'm importing all three regressions algorithms, and now let's start with our lasso regression first. So I'm instantiating lasso, LASSO small, but if you look at it, lasso actually scikit-learn puts capital L. So lasso, because internally there is a lot of random numbers are used to do this algorithm. Random state is one important argument if you want to get the same results every time you run this. So I'm putting my random state, but I'm not giving my lambda value at all. Okay, I'm just fitting, because by default all of this lasso, ridge, elastic net, they take lambda equal to 1. That is the default value. So I'm without bothering about tuning it, I'm just calling it and running it. Okay, so it has fit, it has understood my data. It would have calculated the coefficients. Now we can print them and see the coefficients also. Let's say here I want to put lasso underscore or lasso dot coefficient underscore. Okay, so okay, what happened? Print lasso dot coef, only one f is there. Okay, okay, so it has calculated. Okay, with even one, whatever one is my default. Lasso regression, unlike your simple linear regression, it has actually made all betas, including the original x also, as 0. Okay, so that is how already with lambda equal to 1 itself, this is the effect. So if you make lambda more, nothing is going to change. Let us see the plot and see how does this model look like. Okay, this model slope is already 0. Okay, it is an underfit model. So now if I want to tune this, I cannot increase from default, I have to reduce from default. Okay, so anyway, lasso coefficients I'm seeing already with lambda equal to 1 by default, already all betas have been made zeros. So it has removed all features. Okay, so I want to reduce and see. Okay, I'm making now, I'm calling again lasso alpha equal to 0.1, because increasing it will not help now. Okay, it's already underfit, it is horizontal line, slope equal to 0. I want to now tilt where slope is actually increasing to an extent it is better for this data. But again, it is a multiple linear regression. We will not see the slope in that way. Okay, so what I'm doing now, I ran my lasso algorithm with my tunable strength changed. Lambda is not called lambda, lambda is called alpha. Okay, alpha equal to 0.1, and random state I put here, and I fitted it, so it stopped. It might have computed again my lasso coefficients. So lasso underscore coef, if you see that lasso dot coef underscore. Okay, so nothing much really changed. Okay, let us plot and see what happened with 0.1. Okay, I think some things actually 0.0, but some values I don't know why. Maybe we are running it here again. Let us run this. Okay, but when you plot this with 0.1, okay, reduced lambda, okay, it has become little different. Okay, then let us keep okay, sorry, we have done a wrong thing here. It is lasso 2. Okay, so we are using so lasso 2 coefficient I'm doing. Then all betas are not 0. Okay, some betas are having value, means features have not been removed. Because of that, we are seeing this effect. Okay, it is not a straight horizontal line. So it improved by reducing my strength of my penalty. Okay, then okay, like earlier you asked, now it is a very rudimentary tuning process, but when we do project we'll know. What I'm doing is that, why to do one by one numbers? Let me see by increasing something is happening, or by reducing something is happening, or where it is showing better. Again, we cannot do it in a really real project by visualization, but here what I'm doing, I am trying with 0.01, 0.05, 0.1, 0.51. I want to see with all these values, so I put it in a loop. Okay, and I'm, for everything, every value of lambda in this list iterable, I am going to plot. While plotting, on the header I will put alpha equal to that number, what is the value, and then plot all 5 of them at once. Okay, using my for loop. So this is the response to alpha equal to 0.01, very low value of alpha. Then 0.05, this is the kind of thing. 0.1 already we have seen. Okay, it is much better than other things. But then as you made alpha 0.5, it became a slanted line, so slope is decreasing, and means most of the betas are becoming 0 already here. Okay, some betas have become 0 here, some few betas only have become 0 here. Okay, like that it is happening. Basically, as more betas have become 0, it became, it's really the nature of linear regression it is showing here. Okay, that slanted line. But if you have added the highest, at least for this problem data set and for this algorithm, when I put 1, actually every beta has been removed, means every feature has been removed from my table. So automatic feature removal happened by way of this algorithm. So that is what happened. So that is how typically our lasso regression works. Now let us work on the same problem with ridge regression. Okay, so again here what I am doing is that I am invoking ridge with default alpha equal to 1.0, but in ridge actually beta j square terms are added. Keep that in mind. Already we talked. Okay, so simple linear ridge regression on our data set of whatever 100 x and G1 to G99 and Y. Using that I am training this ridge algorithm. Okay, then it is a very overfit. Okay, with alpha equal to 1.0, whereas alpha equal to 1.0 on lasso was already underfit. So meaning I have to use higher numbers than 1.0 now to tune it. Okay, so here I am doing alpha equal to 0.5 because it is overfit. I don't know by increasing or decreasing what will happen. So I am decreasing first from 1 to 0.5. So it is not changed much. So now I thought maybe better actually I make bigger numbers to lambda. Okay, so I decided to use 5, 10, 50, 100 and 500. Okay, then I want to plot all of them together. So for alpha equal to 5, it is still overfit. Alpha equal to 10, nothing changed much. 50, nothing changed much. 100, things little bit changed. 500 is better little bit. Okay, then if you increase let's say you got interested and want to see big number. This is actually how much? 10 lakhs, 1 million, alpha equal to 1 million. Then it has not made, it is a, if you look at coefficients now here, ridge coefficients, okay, nothing became 0. All of them are very, very, very close to 0, but nothing is 0. Okay. But because you have used a very, very large lambda, okay, it has shrunk all the coefficients, dampened the effect of, all features are there in the equation, but a dampening effect we are able to see. Feature shrinkage is happening, not feature removal. So lasso has enabled you for feature removal, and ridge is helping you to shrink irrelevant features. Are you with me? Then let us play with a little bit on the elastic net algorithm. So I'm invoking again, there are two parameters to be tuned when you use elastic net. One is your penalty lambda. Okay, I'm using default. The other one is called L1 underscore ratio. That is how the argument is named. So I'm starting with 0.5, means I want L1 and L2, lasso and ridge 50% kind of effect. Okay, and a random state, and I'm fitting the model, and I'm also predicting and plotting the model. Okay, so this is the effect of my elastic net 50-50. There is a little bit of slant, means a lot of betas have been reduced to small values. Okay, you can look at that, what we called here, whatever enet underscore coefficient, let us do that. Enet dot coefficient, then it should, okay, a lot of them are 0, that is why also is slant, but 1, the x still has some minus 0.103, that is why we are seeing this slant thing. But if you, let's say if we make it more of a lasso, okay, I'm putting 0.9, means L1 0.9 effect, 0.1 is my ridge effect. Then what happens, let us see, it is becoming, the slant has been reduced more, means even if you look at here again, okay, coefficients that will be have been reduced to 0 kind of thing. Then I'm making it as again, let us see the coefficients. Okay, almost everything became 0 by 0.9 on the lasso side. Let us look at we'll run the algorithm now with L1 ratio equal to 0.1, means lasso 0.1, 0.9 is my ridge. So more ridge means beta j square terms will be higher. Then it is looking like this. And if you look at again coefficients, they will not be made zeros, a lot of will be shrunk, but they will have some beta values are there. Okay, so now let me try with a range of L1 L2 ratio numbers. So I want to try with 0.1 L1 to L2 ratio, 0.3, 0.5, and I'm keeping alpha equal to 0.1. I'm not playing, but if you are interested, you can play with that also. You can put another for loop and put a alpha also some value, and for this L1 L2 with different alphas you can try, and many plots you can see and see the effect. But I'm not doing all that. I'm only varying my L1 ratio only, L1 underscore ratio with various numbers, 0.1 to 0.9. Gradually I'm going and seeing for 0.9, 0.1 means lasso 0.1, L2 0.9, this is the effect. And as I am doing L1 0.3, increasing it, you can see the effect. 0.5, more betas are shrunk. Then 0.7, some more. 0.9, almost everything is shrunk because it is becoming more lasso by the time. So this is the little bit of intuition building and playing around with these 3 algorithms that I want. Again, you could have done that, but I thought it will take a lot of time today. So I just did it for myself and shown it to you. You have any questions? You have any questions?
No, Madhu.
Okay. So see you tomorrow then. Thank you so much for your attention. Bye-bye.